afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Alissa, Coram, and Ken Shreve here. And on today's show, we're going to be taking a look at the charts of ServiceNow, as well as Insulet and KOPA software. But before we get to that, let's take a look at those major indexes. So it was a down day, but the losses weren't too severe. The Nasdaq finishing down with a loss of about 0.3% for the day, the least hard hit among the major indexes. But Ken, I mean, we've just been on such a tear with this rally. So even if you have a day like today, you have to put it in perspective and just see how far extended we are from those shorter term moving averages.
Yeah, we had some weak economic data before the open. Obviously, another big jump in weekly jobless claims. Claims over the past 6 weeks are now over 30 million. Weak personal income and spending data. So the economic data that's going to be coming in over the next several weeks, I think the market knows full well it's not going to be good. So I think the stock market is just kind of looking out over the next 9 months and optimistic about a recovery. There are still a lot of uncertainty about what that recovery is going to look like, but it's been such a nice rally for the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 off lows. I thought today's action was very constructive for a pullback. There was a big outperformance in software stocks today that buoyed the Nasdaq. And when you look at the daily chart here, it was really just a nice inside day for the Nasdaq. It closed in the upper half of its range, lost a little ground, but held up relatively well. So the Nasdaq tried to sell off today, but really didn't have much luck.
Yeah, and you mentioned outperformance in software. So let's take a look at ServiceNow, ticker NOW, because this one was definitely a standout today with a big move on earnings, gaining about 9.6% above average turnover. Not quite hitting a new all-time high yet, but that relative strength line, which measures price performance versus the S&P 500, that is hitting a new high, which is quite bullish. This comes on the heels of a strong earnings report. We had earnings growth of 57% and another quarter of 30% plus top line growth, Ken.
Yeah, 7 quarters in a row, in fact, of 30% revenue growth, 30% or better revenue growth. Bill McDermott is the new CEO at ServiceNow. He took over the job a little while ago, came over from German company SAP. John Donahoe used to lead ServiceNow. Now he's running the show at Nike. So Bill McDermott is, he's got great pedigree as a CEO, so he'll be fine in this new role. ServiceNow is really a fundamental superstar in the enterprise software space, so it's a really nice earnings report today. It's a very bullish chart, just a classic example of what a cup base looks like. It was fairly orderly pullback. When it pulled back from 362 down to 238 when the stock market crash happened, it pretty much pulled back right in line with the S&P 500, and growth stocks can correct up to 2 times what the broad market does. So it in fact was a pretty orderly pullback when ServiceNow pulled back. It's worked its way higher, and now it's a breakout candidate. We added this stock to leaderboard today, so we think it's certainly one of the better names in the enterprise software group.
Yeah, it is definitely looking strong. And elsewhere, let's check in on KOPA software, which tried to break out over a cup entry today, ended up closing up about 4.6%. The relative strength line here, too, also looking quite strong.
Yeah, you can see the high of the left side of the cup base here of 178. It topped that buy point earlier in the session, backed off highs, but you can see it still managed to close in the top half of its range. This is an interesting company. They operate basically a cloud-based spend management platform for corporate America. So, what companies these days don't want to get a handle on their spending, and KOPA software helps companies do that. So it's another company with outstanding earnings and sales growth, and we're just seeing so many technical breakouts in the market in recent weeks, particularly in the software sector. And KOPA, tried to break out today, came up a little bit short, but it was still a pretty bullish session for the stock, and you can see a relative strength line in new high ground. So it's just another way a stock shows its strength in the market.
That's right. And last but not least, let's take a look at Insulet. Now, we have been, when it comes to these diabetes plays, really been focusing in on Dexcom. But when you take a look at Insulet's chart, you are now seeing a setup here with a potential handle.
Yeah, it's this is a really nice looking setup here. So this is one reason why we're so optimistic about the market here. So many stocks acting well. There have been plenty of breakouts. Stocks acting well after a breakout, like Amazon and Shopify. I mean, just a host of other stocks. But Insulet is setting up in a nice base here with a 209.94 buy point. We've been talking about diabetes stocks for quite a while on this video. They've been outperforming the market. Tandem Diabetes reported earnings after the close today. That stock was up 7% during regular trading. It's up another 4% in after hours. Dexcom is a member of the leaderboard portfolio, so we've done well with that name. And a lot of these diabetes stocks continue to lead the market. So looking at Insulet, PODD. This is, definitely a breakout candidate, and we're going to hear from them next week on their earnings report. So definitely watching this one closely, and we'll see what earnings look like next week.
Yes, we're definitely watching that one very closely. Earnings next week, as you mentioned, Ken, and a lot of big reports this week. Some coming after the close today. We're continuing to get them, and they've produced a lot of interesting, actionable setups. So we've been watching them very closely and analyzing them in detail on IBD Live. And I'm sure, Ken, your earnings preview column this week will outline a lot more potential trades to look at heading into next week as well.
Oh, I'm finishing that up right now, and I'm just trying to figure out. There are so many. I mean, we thought this week was busy with earnings. Next week is is really busy, but we're going to hear from Shopify, which has been a big market leader. We just mentioned Insulet in the diabetes space. Some security software firms that have been performing well, Fortinet and Ping Identity. So there's a whole host of top-rated growth stocks on deck with earnings next week. So we'll be definitely writing about those.
Yeah, definitely check that out and join us tomorrow morning on IBD Live as we analyze some of these names that are moving big on their earnings reports. You can check that out at investors.com/IBD Live. So we'll see you there tomorrow morning, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow after the close. Thanks for watching.